Yo, what's happening, y'all? Welcome back. Nick _Underhill. Every single Tuesday at 9 a.m. we talk to Nick. He is the creator of New Orleans Football, the best resource for all of your New Orleans Saints news. Well worth the sign-up cost. Very happy to be in that number. Nick, what's going on, man? How we doing today? Were you up in Cleveland?
No, I tried to go, man, but it got everything got canceled. I was on a Southwest flight, so if I would have made it there, it seems like I would have been marooned in Cleveland for like a week.
Bad
which,
place.
Yeah, I'm from that area of the country, but I'm good. I've seen enough. I don't need to be there for a full week. But yeah, we tried to get there. Was gonna drive, and then we were about to leave, and there was like a 75 car pile up on the highway or something. And we just kind of figured it was best to stay alive for the next one.
Wait, did you say you tried to drive to Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean it's like 15 hours. Like I was ready to do it. I mean, there's kind of like a responsibility to be there. And I kind of take that a little bit seriously and it's a little more personal because people pay to read our stuff. So like, I want to be there. I want to give them the commitment they're giving to us. But it was just kind of an impossible task.
You're off the hook. Okay. No guilt needed. That's it's a thought that counts, Nick. And that's what you get from New Orleans Football. What you also get is great insight and explanations. And so, Nick, how did a dome team from the South go into Cleveland, an outdoor stadium, 6 degrees, minus 16 wind chill, coldest game in Saints history, second coldest regular season game in Browns history? How did that Saints team go up there and beat them in their elements?
Well, they had to kind of get out of their own way a little bit. I think going into the game, they were kind of maybe outsmarting themselves a little bit with the wind. They thought when they had the wind at their backs, they were going to be able to go out and pass. And so they elected to have that in the first quarter. And they tried to do that, and it didn't work. And I think the idea for them was to try to get out to a lead, take control of the game, and then kind of try to force Cleveland to throw to get back in the game, because throwing in this game wasn't going to be advantageous. But obviously that didn't work early on. I was a little bit shocked that it took until 3:24 of the second quarter for Taysom Hill to kind of get his first carry of the game. And once they finally settled in on the idea of, okay, we're going to run the ball with Taysom, we're going to run the ball with Alvin, and we're going to direct snap to Alvin even, so we have that 10th blocker in a game where it's kind of about bully ball, that's when they finally started to take control of this game a little bit. But it took them a little while to figure it out. But look, I mean, you can kind of go into it. The way you look at that, the two sides of it is kind of like, well, if I don't like the coaching staff and I think they aren't doing a good job, I'm going to look at it like it's stupid and idiotic. If you're kind of neutral, it's kind of like, okay, they went into a game, they had a plan, they had to adjust, they found a way to adjust. Now they've won 2 games in a row where, the score was close, where they were losing those games earlier in the season. I think it's fair to say that there's things with the coaching staff that's been a little bit underwhelming, but they're starting to do a couple things a little bit better as the season goes on. And I think we're kind of seeing that a little bit. The initial planning, again, a little bit shaky, confusing. I was kind of screaming at the TV a little bit, like, what are you guys doing? Give Taysom the ball. But they eventually figured it out, and they found the way to win the game.
Yeah, I am neutral, and I was screaming as well, because like, if this ever had a feel of a Taysom Hill game, like, this was it. And you can't be predictable, Nick. Like, I do understand that portion of it, but you do have a unique piece that's built for a game like that. And you said it perfectly. Like, even when he wasn't getting the ball, he can be that extra blocker. I mean, he did. I mean, he was leading on Sam linebackers on power, because he's that kind of guy. He can do those type of things. And so, like, for me, it's just like, why did it take so long to get there? Because I agree with you. You come in with a game plan, you try to trick them a little bit. In the first quarter, it doesn't work. But, like, I was screaming, like, it's working. And certainly, like, once it got, like, 11 yards that first time, it's like, okay, like, you should do this almost every single play. And, like, that's the thing that worries me a little bit. Like, why did it take you so long to figure that out? Because it felt obvious watching it.
Yeah, and look, it's probably not as simple as like I think it is, but it just kind of felt like I would have went out there, heavy sets, had those two guys in the backfield, motion Alvin over to take the snap, motion Taysom over to take the snap, kind of keep him off balance a little bit through that, and then you go back and forth. And like you said, Taysom, he was doing a great job as a fullback, the lead blocker, and that's kind of what makes him a unique weapon. And I kind of think they just overthink this whole entire thing with him. Even moving him to tight end, like I would have him in the backfield. I would hand the ball off to him sometimes, let him get that 3 yards of head of steam and just kind of plow through people that way. I just think that they overthink kind of how they use him, and they overcomplicate it. And the thing with him is he's going to end his whole tenure here is a guy that I think just never quite has the right mix of plays for him. When he went to quarterback, I don't think they leaned far enough into designing it specifically for him. And now that he's in this other position, I don't think that they're being creative enough with him. And every week, Pete Carmichael comes up and I ask him like, hey, what's the deal with Taysom? How come you can't get him more carries? And he's just like, we got to do a better job of that. I just don't get why it's more complicated than just saying, okay, we're going to get Taysom the ball on first and second down. Like, just give him the ball, then he has the ball, and it's not as complicated as it has to be. But they like the certain situations, and they feel like they need to be in certain positions to do it. And I just don't think it needs to be as hard as they make it out to be.
Give him the ball, then he has the ball. Oh wow, novel concept there, Nick. I agree. How about this? Right now in New Orleans football, one of the kind of tantalizing headlines here is, and this is something we actually touched on a bit earlier with the cleats and everything, is the impact the equipment staff had on this game. What did you find out about how the equipment staff got this team ready for that 6-degree weather?
Yeah, Mike Triplett talked to them guys and just kind of went through the process of what they had to do and having to buy thousands of hand warmers and toe warmers and feet warmers and all this stuff, and just kind of being prepared for a type of game that they never thought they were actually going to have to play in. And I think a lot of that stuff really is key, and they do a great job. I mean, that staff is kind of prepared for all contingencies, and they always have them prepared. And even when Sean was the head coach, and there was just kind of the extreme emphasis on having the right footwear and everything, they always had the options, and if guys had to change out, they had other types of spikes they could wear. So it's just kind of being prepared for everything. And in a game like that where it is so far out of your elements and you're kind of in a really tough situation, they're kind of the unsung heroes of that game. So I think just their preparation and making sure the team was prepared to handle it and not get beat by the cold, it was really step one of winning this game.
So one thing that's kind of lost in the shuffle here a bit, Nick, was that Alvin Kamara tied, I believe, the franchise record for touchdowns on Sunday. Is that correct, right? I believe he tied Marcus Colston's franchise record. What is Alvin Kamara's kind of current role, future form with this team? I know that we kind of hope the addition of the weapons of the offseason would seem to unlock him this year. I don't know that that's happened. How do you view Alvin Kamara as he stands today?
I hate how they use him. I mean, I'm just honestly, like every week I see something that's just like so frustrating. I mean, like just look at third downs, for instance. He's playing 62% of them this year. Last year it was like 81%. And it's not, I thought it was because of the blitz pickup, because he's allowed some pressures, and the Tampa game was a good example of that. He allowed one and then he kind of lost some snaps. And I think that one was maybe directly correlated to punishment, but overall, throughout the season, if you look in the games where he was active, he's playing the highest percentage of third downs well lined up as a running back in the backfield. So it can't just be because of the blitz pickup. So you start digging a little bit deeper. Okay, where is he losing the snaps? And you look around at it, he has played 7 snaps at a receiver position on third down the whole season. Going back to previous seasons, it's like 35, 40. He's getting a lot of plays in the slot, a lot of plays on the outside. They've just stopped doing that, period. So in that other 40% of the snaps on third downs, that's where he's losing his plays. And it's crazy to me because he has 99 catches in his career, well lined up in one of those receiver positions. 45 of them have gone for a first down. That feels like something you could do on third down. And especially in a game like, this last one, again, they aren't passing the ball a lot, but last year, you have receiver injuries. It feels like there's room for him to operate there. It would seem like it would be the opposite when they had Willie Snead and Mike Thomas and all these guys. It seems like it would be harder for him to get snaps in those positions. And now it seems like it should be easier, and it's not. But you're kind of down that slot receiver this year. And granted, he's not Jarvis Landry or anything like that, but get him out there and use him, get him the ball in space. Those wheel routes that he used to run from there, the one in the Vikings playoff game, and he hit it a couple times throughout his career. Like, that's a great play for him, but they just aren't doing that this year. And the creativity with him, and you start looking at the screens, he isn't getting screen passes anymore. Like, just some of the options of creativity, getting him the ball in space, have just kind of completely dissipated. And, I think you can kind of look at his career and 17, 18, 19. I think we all would have sat here and said he's on a Hall of Fame path. I think he's kind of been taken out of that the last couple of years, just with kind of how the offense is, injuries, different factors. But, part of it is just kind of where the team's at, how they're using them, who the quarterbacks are. Andy Dalton was supposed to be the guy that comes in and unlocks them. And, really it's kind of more of a scheme issue than anything right now. Like he just doesn't have the same opportunities that he used to have. If I were him, I'd be frustrated. I would be extremely frustrated with the situation and kind of the way he's being used, but he's kind of a team first guy. Doesn't really think of it like that. He's been positive every time you talk to him about it on the record, off the record. But I could see someone becoming frustrated in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely got to get him going because he is a definite weapon for the Saints. Hey, as I'm looking around, obviously, Nick, the season hasn't gone like we all thought it would go, but you start to look for bright spots. And I know technically they still can make the postseason, but let's say they don't. Rashid Shaheed's somebody that I think can be a very big bright spot for this team. I don't think he's out there making plays because nobody is covering him or nobody knows who he is. I mean, at this point, he's out there making plays with people knowing what he can do right now, young in his career. So it seems like a player that they kind of found a diamond in the rough, obviously coming from Weber State. Like, what do you think his future can be with this team? Because I think it's more than just the Saints are out of it. They're just throwing bodies out there.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I mean, just this last game, that one play on the out route where he kind of like adjusted it so he had the opportunity to get yards after the catch is just really a play that they haven't been getting all season. So yeah, I don't think it's just a thing where it's by default he's getting the ball because there's nobody else on the team. I think he's somebody that can be sort of like a legitimate weapon for them. Now, I think they're missing that kind of big bodied type of receiver that you do need to run the underneath stuff and just kind of make those contested catches. But you kind of look at like Kansas City last year. They got, and look, I'm not comparing these guys to Tyreek Hill and who was the other guy? Hardman, or is that it? Yeah,
McCall.
Yeah. So they had the two burners, and then they have Kelsey. Like you can have two really fast guys. You just need that big body guy. But look, I think they would have to change their offense a little bit to take advantage of the skill set of him and Olave with their ability to get down the field. Like right now, they're kind of like a team that's just has to execute their way down the field in 10, 12, 15 play drives. And Tampa's kind of the same way. And that's just not the way football is kind of being played anymore. Like the better offenses are explosive plays. And it's sort of like the NBA, like when the Warriors all of a sudden start shooting threes and you see this transition through the league and now everybody's doing it. Like these offenses are kind of still taking elbow jumpers a little bit and trying to play in a way that's just not how the league is going. So I think they got to find a way to unlock that. If those two guys are going to be the identity of the offense and be a big part of the passing game, like they have to get down the field.
Nick, am I off base here? It sounds like there's an undercurrent with you, an undercurrent of frustration with Pete Carmichael. And in a year where it feels like, Dennis Allen, you probably run it back. The team is playing hard for them. They winners of 2 in a row now. Saints, just from what we know how they operate, they probably run it back. But the coordinators are not necessarily safe. Are you frustrated with Carmichael?
I think they got to do things a little bit differently on offense for sure. I mean, the Alvin stuff just kind of speaks for itself. The second and 10 runs, stuff like that speaks for itself. And, I don't know if it's all Pete Carmichael, though. Like that might have been, I think their idea coming into the season was protect the ball, don't turn it over, play defense, don't lose games on offense. But that doesn't work. I mean, it just doesn't work in the league anymore. I mean, people love to say stuff like, you got to run the ball in the playoffs and you got to be this in the playoffs. But the teams that win now are pass-first offenses. The Chiefs, the Bills, Philadelphia. Like these are the teams that are winning in the league right now. The Bengals got there that way. I mean, obviously you got to be able to run the ball to some extent, but you have to be able to throw it. You got to be able to get explosive plays. I haven't looked at it. I would guarantee the Saints are in the bottom third in the league in explosive plays. I would guarantee Tampa is down there, and you just see the similar frustrations with those offenses, and it is just so hard to score points. Like it's just so hard, especially when you don't have Drew Brees being the guy that's kind of popping your way down the field. Like you can do it with him, you can do it with prime Tom Brady, but when you're kind of don't have those players and you have these guys that can run 4-3 on the outside, having your offense kind of not predicated on play action shot plays and stuff like that, I don't think it makes sense. So if they were to bring him back, I think you got to just have a talk about what you're going to do. How are we going to play offense? Are we going to try to become more explosive? Are we going to be creative with Alvin Kamara? Because he became like an extremely high paid player, not because he runs the ball between the tackles, excellently. It's because he can do all this other stuff. And
so true.
And you take that out, and now he's an overpaid running back that averages 3.9 yards per carry. I think it's just you got to use these players to their strengths. And I don't know that that they're using the offensive players to their full strength, Taysom included in there. So, yeah, I think it's frustrating to watch their offense. I think it has been all year. Last year I thought it was frustrating too, but for different reasons. This year it's kind of like a little bit of the stuff from last year. Plus, why aren't you doing this with Alvin? Some of it just kind of seems like they're overthinking it.
Yeah, you have better personnel this year, and yet you haven't unlocked how you were expecting to this entire. Real quick here, Nick. We've kept you long. Last thing, you can go as quick as you want. Any Sean Payton to the Broncos potentially? Broncos firing Nathaniel Hackett. That seemed to be. I don't think there's any legitimate saying this is happening. It just seems to be people being like, oh, well, that would make sense for Denver to just basically say, Sean, we'll pay you however much money you need to come here and try to save us.
I think it'd be tough to, if I were Sean, I'm just speaking as if I'm Sean Payton, I'm looking at the options. I think it would be tough to throw him with Russell Wilson right now, just kind of the way things are going with him. I also think Denver would probably have to fire their GM. I think Sean wants to be tied to his GM, and I think that GM, if he ends up somewhere, I kind of think it's going to end up being Jeff Ireland. If I had to bet on any of the possible open situations, I don't see the Chargers opening up. Cowboys, you never know. If that one opens up, I think there's a decent chance of it. I like Arizona. If I were him, I would be looking at the Arizona situation. And I wouldn't say that for any coach, but a coach like Sean that kind of has full control, commands respect. I think him and Kyler Murray could be really good for each other. I think Sean, especially for Kyler Murray, I think he needs that type of player. And I know Sean really, really liked him coming out of college. Now things have kind of changed a little bit with how they did his contract, and the impression of him is a little bit different. But I think that's a decent situation. And you could kind of go in, not have a ton of expectations next year. You kind of set your culture. Murray's hurt for a little bit. And a year from, 24, I think is a season where you go kind of all in. You got a good draft pick then, because next season's probably not great. And I just kind of like that spot for him out of all the ones that seem possible of opening up. But look, I also don't think it's, I don't think it could be in the cards for him to come back and do TV too. None of these situations are necessarily great. So, and barring a surprise one, I think Arizona is probably going to end up being his best option.
Nick Underhill at Nick_Underhill on Twitter. New Orleans Football is the site. They do incredible work. Nick, thank you so much, man. How was your Christmas outside of not being able to make the games? All good?
Yeah, everything was great. Hope you guys had a good one too.
Hell yes, man. Excited to see what New Orleans Football has planned for 2023. You have a great day, man.
You too.